Hudson County View live on Uncut. I'm your host, the guy that lifts barbell plates, eats T-bone steaks, and still has a demeanor that's sweeter than a chocolate cake, John Arhitis, and of course the latest and greatest in Hudson County news. So obviously something that we've talked about a lot in the past couple weeks has been redistricting. Now while this has happened in about a handful of municipalities, the one that certainly people are watching the closest is right here in Jersey City. So we obviously saw some big changes. For example, the proposed map that we've all seen at this point had Liberty State Park, Liberty Science Center, SciTech City going from Ward F to Ward A. We saw downtown ceding pieces of land into Ward C, into Ward D, and Ward F. Uh, we saw some big changes in Ward A. We saw Society Hill and the Bayfront area going to Ward B. Well, if you haven't seen my tweet from about an hour ago, that's all out the window. There's now a new proposed map ahead of Saturday's hearing at Jersey City City Hall. And we're very fortunate today to be joined by someone that has a hand in the process. That's Hudson County Board of Elections Clerk Michael Harper. So certainly we have a lot to discuss with him, and I'm looking very much forward to that. We're also going to talk about the $241 million Hoboken school referendum. So this is something that has garnered a lot of interest since the holiday season. And, we're starting to see some people take some hardline stances that maybe we didn't expect. For example, there was a Jersey Journal editorial today that said this deserves to be voted down since it was not a transparent process, long story short. So we're going to talk about some of the latest developments there. We're also going to talk a little bit about what's going on at the fire at 38 Jackson Street that, of course, occurred in Hoboken last month, December 20th, unfortunately, claimed the lives of two people. The second victim has been identified. Going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Jersey City officials and advocates collaborating to get the heat on over at an apartment building on the west side. This was a pending court matter that was awaiting action, and we just saw that action taken this week. So we're going to tell you about that, all that, and a little bit more, I'm sure, right after we hear a word from our sponsors.
Good Friend Self Storage in North Bergen, New Jersey is a fully climate-controlled facility equipped with state-of-the-art security, packing supplies, a Refer Friend program, and multiple loading docks convenient for commercial use. Located just off of Route 3 at 4301 Tunnelly Avenue, Route 1 and 9. Call 201-867-2444 or visit us on the web today. Good Friend Self Storage. Let us be your good friend.
Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunnelly Avenue, Jersey City. Hudson County's only monument maker, serving all faiths and cemeteries. Design, studio, and large inventory on site. Cemetery inscriptions and custom orders welcome. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunnelly Avenue, just south of Secaucus Road. Craftsmanship that will last for all eternity. Burns Brothers, Jersey City, Albert H. Harper, North Arlington. Visit us on the net.
Hudson County View live on Uncut, John Arhitis. As I mentioned a moment ago, today I'm joined by Hudson County Board of Elections Clerk Michael Harper. Mike, thanks so much for making some time. You're in high demand these days.
John, I'm so happy to be here. Happy to join you from the beautiful council chamber here in downtown Jersey City, where I have spent most of my last couple days setting up, ensuring that our meeting that we're hosting this Saturday at 9:30 a.m. is a success, and as many people who would like to take part in the process will be able to, either virtually or in person.
Very good, Mike. So let's just do a quick recap. Obviously, it's been a pretty crazy week, needless to tell you. So I know this is something you've done. 6 municipalities, and I know that this is
7 municipalities
seven
municipalities in Hudson County apply. It applies to any place that runs an election by ward. So any place with ward council people must redistrict decennially every 10 years after the federal census. And that's what, if you wouldn't, that's exactly where I would like to start. There's been so much misunderstanding, miscomprehension of the process, and that's somewhat understandable. Even long-time politically active, politically involved politicians don't understand this process because it takes place so seldom, every 10 years. All of the rewarding redistricting law is contained in state law and NJSA 40:44. Any of your viewers, even just searching that, NJSA space 40:44, will get you started, will get you right to the area that you want to be in. That will show you the state law that really lays out when this has to be done, the timeline of it, who sits on the board that does it, and the criteria for drawing the new maps. All of that is contained very, very explicitly in state law.
All right, great. So with that, we know that it's a bipartisan commission, right? It's five
Yeah,
people
yeah.
appointed by the governor, and then you also have the secretary, and who is the clerk of the municipality.
It
And also
is
the chair.
by design. The composition of the board is laid out in NJSA 40:44-11, and by state law, the board is composed of the Board of Elections from that county and the municipal clerk. So it ends up being a 7-member board. The Board of Elections, which is who I work for on a day-to-day basis, that is a 6-member board, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, all appointed by the governor. That board sits as the rewarding commission in every town where it's applicable, with the addition of the city clerk. So here in Jersey City, Sean Gallagher, the municipal clerk, is on the rewarding board. He is the secretary to the rewarding board.
Okay, very good. And now, this is something that you guys been working on for, I don't know, I guess it was a few weeks, but if you could just walk us through on when you started actually looking at the maps and how you drew the lines and how you came up with that design that we first saw. I believe that was last Wednesday. Most of us first got a first look at.
Surely. Okay, so let's start with the time frame. The time frame is very tight. Again, according to state law, it's basically overall you have 120 days from the day the governor promulgates the census numbers. Basically, the time the governor of New Jersey says, "Okay, yes, we accept these. These are the official census numbers." From that time, you have within 90 days. So that was September 16th when he did that. Within 90 days, by December 15th, we had to have the first meeting of all the rewarding commissions. We did that in a joint meeting up at Hudson County Plaza, where all 7 of the clerks that this applies to came up, and we had sort of just an initial meeting where we acknowledged the numbers as they stood and our need to adjust them in some cases, in most cases, in 6 out of the 7 cases, and then set up a schedule for some work meetings to start doing this. When you ask, like, how do you start with the maps? How we started with the maps is really myself, staff, and the commissioner or two. I have to say a special thank you to Board of Election Commissioner Dan Beckelman, who started as half a genius on these rewarding redistricting softwares, and I think we've got him up to full genius now. He's the one who most understands and really does that physical computer work on these. But according to the state law, wards have to be drawn in a way, they have to get within a 10% deviation from each other. So the highest, the most populous ward can't be more than really 5% higher or 5% lower than the least populous ward. So you want to get that number together tightly. And the state law, the criteria is rather minimal. Other than that, the only thing the state law speaks to is that they be contiguous and compact. Some other things that we certainly took into consideration that the case law and history has told us we must take into consideration was demographics. You'll notice in our new proposed map, and even in our first proposed map, the demographics are very close to the demographics of the current wards. That was something we aimed for. Keeping neighborhoods together. That's something that's come up a lot, and people feel that, like, my neighborhood is a compact, is its own thing, and we don't understand why you would cut that in any way. I do have to ask, people for some understanding along the lines of, when you start doing this, and let me start with this. The current map, as drawn in Jersey City, had almost a 60% deviation. That was due mostly to the huge amount of growth enjoyed right here in downtown Jersey City over the last decade. The E Ward was almost 70,000, had a population of almost 70,000. In a case where the average ward in Jersey City should have had 47 to 48,000 people. So those 20,000 plus right off the bat have to, by state law, by the every reasoning for rewarding, were going to come out of E Ward. Now, some people I've also heard, they say, okay, so that was that, but there were other wards that weren't that didn't deviate that greatly. Why are you even touching them at all? People have to understand the domino effect of when you start moving 20,000 people from one. You couldn't just take 20,000 people from E and put them in F or D or C. All right, it ended up sort of spidering out into the former E population in all three of those wards, but it still affects the other two. It has to. And once you start moving these census, we work by census blocks. Once you start moving them from one ward to another, and you see the deviation going up and down, and again trying to remain as loyal as possible, as to keep neighborhoods and historic districts and different things together. I will say this map ends up moving almost 55,000 people from between wards. Please, one of my first pieces of advice to anybody would be, don't take it personally. It wasn't, it's not something that we were looking for you or your neighborhood. These, and I will also say, as we're talking about this,
Mike, just could you hold that thought for a moment? We got to take a break.
Sure.
But we'll be right back.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure. Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights. Your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants. All major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2712.
Ford made their first all-electric SUV a Mustang. Rapid acceleration, reactive handling, 300-mile range. You control how it feels and how it sounds. It knows you. It dials into your preferred settings. It has an array of driver assist technology. Cameras and sensors enhance your awareness and provide you with additional control. But it's more than cutting-edge technology. It's the spirit of it. It's a Mustang.
Hudson County View live at Uncut. John Arhitis, and I'm still with Hudson County Board of Elections Clerk Michael Harper. So, Mike, if you wanted to finish your thought before we had to jump to a break, I know you were in the middle of something.
Yeah. I just want to say, in general, just that people understand the first generality that you can talk about with rewarding redistricting is it is not a process destined to make large groups of people happy. It's change, and people are resistant to change, of course. And I also just want to say it's a process that is not. Intelligent people can disagree in the rewarding process. There are thousands of ways to do anything. And even the 5 towns that we have successfully already rewarded thus far in this cycle, the board, I don't think, has ever presented that that's the only right answer. It is just a right answer. And, you could look at it and think it should have been done a different way. But there are criteria and thought goes into it. It's sort of not a slapdash process that I think people would like to believe it is.
Sure. No, I mean, look, I know it's a meticulous thing, and like you said, it's once a decade, so it's not like it's a lot to learn on the fly for a lot of people. Definitely. I mean, coming into last week, I didn't know a ton about redistricting. So, with that said, obviously things didn't go the way that we would have liked last week. Certainly it would have been nice to get the Zoom operating the way you would have hoped. Didn't work out, but now we're back on for Saturday morning, and it looks like everything is in order, which is great. Though there was one thing that has given people some pause. So, after I wrote about this happening, this rescheduling of the meeting, we heard from Mayor Stephen Fulop, and he said the city is going to court tomorrow to ask for a 60-day extension. This is similar to an extension granted in 2010. The commissioners have said that there will be in-person and virtual option at any meetings. The clerk, law department are digging into past practices to make sure, so that's the current ward boundaries, still exist until the next election, meaning this process doesn't nullify anyone's vote from 2 months ago in November on who they voted to represent them. So, what does this mean from your perspective, and have you seen any court filing yet?
I have not, but I have over the past couple of days spoken to Jersey City Corporation Council. I know they were still going to apply for the extension, and I believe that was really just a worst case scenario thing. We're having this meeting on Saturday, 2 days before the state deadline to finish this process would be Monday. So I think the thought was, God forbid, a snowstorm or a power outage or any number of things, as we know, could happen. I think they were just playing it safe as far as that's concerned. I don't really see, as long as this meeting on Saturday goes well and everyone is heard from and the board votes on to accept the map, we really won't need the extension. But I believe that was something they started doing right after the meeting was not held.
Got it. So obviously the big news today is we actually have a new map that I don't know if everybody has seen yet, But just a couple things off the top of my head. It looks like Marion Gardens is going from Ward B to Ward C. Some other changes here. It also looks like, I'm looking at the side by side. It looks like we have some pickups for Ward E. Obviously, they lost a lot the first time around. And it looks like Ward A is also shrunk just by like a very tiny margin. So just some observations when you're comparing the two maps.
I believe that what the board looked to do following the last Friday's attempt at a meeting was seeing that the amount of public input and feeling on it. The board's original map, I will say, was defendable. Was the demographics were good, the deviation was quite low. But I think after the amount of people who even were looking to have input on the process after seeing that map, I think the board saw and sort of agreed that okay, maybe we went a little too far and brought this map, if you look at it, is just visually closer to the old map and sort of tries to keep everything a little closer to what people are used to and what we've lived with for the last 10 years at the very least.
Now, Ward F on this new map, and on the other map too, but it's an interesting draw up, right? I mean, it's very narrow and it goes across about 3/4 of the boundary line. So, just any thoughts on or explanation on how you came to that result?
No, I mean Ward F was always sort of an oddly shaped ward in the center there, almost landlocked, except down the Liberty State Park area. Again, it's all about numbers and demographics and trying to maintain. The law has said over and over that we, where possible, rewarding on every level, federal, state, and local, should make every attempt to maximize minority electoral possibilities, opportunities. So, the idea is, and I've heard it said, sort of even in regards to the last map, it was sort of put out there like, oh, it looks like the board's trying to pack the black vote into a ward or two. Well, pack it has a negative connotation. That's one way of saying it. The other way to look at it is what is preferable, to have two wards with a 50 to 60% minority demographics, or to spread that over 3 wards and make them 15 to a quarter each. Those are, and as I said, these are questions on which intelligent people can disagree. But really, I mean, the law is quite obviously, case law is totally behind the board's reading that we should try and maximize minority electoral opportunities.
And then just real quick, do you have a timeline on when the county districts, like, the county commissioner districts and the legislative districts are going to be drawn up?
John, again, part of the interesting, infuriating process of rewarding all over. We just got county commissioner lines. I did see those, and I did receive a congressional map. So basically, the only thing outstanding out there right now is the state legislative lines. Now, at that time, when I get that, which I believe are due within the next week and a half, 2 weeks or so, the state legislative redistricting lines. We have to overlay all of those in order to draw new districts on top of that try and respect as much as possible. You can't have a district cutting, in between 2 congressional lines or 2 state Senate lines. So that is the final step of this process, which basically we will have to do before March. That has to be done a good 75 days before the primary, so that those new districts are in effect for both June and November.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us once again. Very informative. I'll see you Saturday, if not sooner. And ladies and gentlemen, don't go yet.
John, thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Yes, Mike, very welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere yet. We're going to take one more break. We'll be right back.
Newport, the luxury waterfront community on the Hudson River, offers a quality of life you deserve in one of our many high-rise towers. With amenities such as the on-site Newport Path, light rail, Newport Town Square, 3 playgrounds, dog run, upscale restaurants, retail giants like Kohl's, JCPenney, Macy's, and Target. Morton Williams and Acme Supermarket are just outside your front door. A health and fitness center, skating rink, and medical facilities are also on site. Enjoy the New York skyline from our waterfront and various parks. Manhattan is just one pass stop away, or a quick ride through the Holland Tunnel. nursery and private elementary schools all on site, 12-screen movie theater at the Newport Center Mall. Looking to visit? Stay at the Westin or Marriott Hotel. For more information, visit us at newportnj.com. Make lasting memories to cherish forever. It's incredible. It's you, Newport. Live like you want.
Hudson County View, live at Uncut. John Arhidas. So obviously that was a lot of Jersey City, but let's go to the Biosquare City for a moment here. Let's talk a little bit about this referendum. Obviously, this has been a big priority. It's the only election here this winter of any sort. So thus far, just to give you a brief recap, as I'm sure most, if not all of you already know, we've seen Mayor Ravi Bala, Councilwoman at Large Emily Jabbour, Councilman at Large Jim Doyle, Fifth Ward Councilman Phil Cohen, and that was in a joint statement between those three council members last month, come out and express some words of support. And we've seen the mayor and Councilwoman Jabbour double down on that. And then since then, we've seen Second Ward Councilwoman Tiffany Fisher come out against. And joining her now is Fourth Ward Councilman Ruben Ramos. So he had an email blast just on Tuesday, and he called this a huge miss and an opportunity for the city and the Board of Education to collaborate. So what he said specifically was, my view is that the plan as proposed is a huge miss and an opportunity for the city of Hoboken, the Hoboken Board of Education to work collaboratively to meet both our educational and community needs. In 2018, I made such an attempt to try and have a school incorporated within the Southwest redevelopment plan. The cost of the school construction would have been in the $35 to $40 million range and would have been built adjacent to the Southwest Park expansion. Although that himself, Mayor Ravi Bala, and Superintendent of Schools Dr. Christine Johnson met with representatives from Academy Bus in 2018. Bala came out against the plan in the beginning of the following year, 2019, and it ended up not happening, as I'm sure you all know. So he also took some stabs at the Board of Ed here. I mean, he said that their planning process showed a complete lack of transparency, have embraced a take it or leave it approach, and basically that this is completely unacceptable. He pointed out rebuild by design. Other park projects in recent memory have all had robust public input prior to actually putting shovels in the ground, and he feels that just hasn't been the case here. And, you know, we've certainly heard from others that share his sentiment here. So he concludes by saying this, as their councilperson and your councilperson, I want what is best for them and you, and this is why I will be voting no on January 25th with the hope that we can all work together to find better solutions to build quality schools and facilities that our students and residents deserve. So, you know, certainly an interesting development. You know, again, in light of this, in light of the Jersey Journal editorial, seems like a lot of people are not happy with the way this process has gone. You know, we didn't really find out about this until, I believe that was the second week of December. Again, this is an extremely expensive plan, $241 million. It would be the most expensive public works plan in Hoboken history and the most expensive school in the country to date per square foot. So, you know, it's a pretty significant deal here. I mean, we're not voting on a couple dollars in shekels. So with that in mind, it's going to be up to the voters one way or the other on Tuesday. So ahead of that, you know, as always, I like to take a look at the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission reports. And the Friends of the New Hoboken High School, obviously, they're in favor of the project. They reported raising $8,489.33 to date, with $2,999.13 cash on hand. The groups opposing the measure have not yet filed. So not a whole heck of a lot to add here, but just according to ELEC regulations, wanted to point out joint committees must file if they raise more than $3,200, with a committee needing to report a contribution or expenditure in excess of $1,900 within the 48-hour reporting period. So beyond that, I think just worth noting that the biggest contributor was Jim Coaches of the Burgess Group, put in $4,000. We also saw three members of Board of Education President Sharon Agley's family chip in a cumulative $500. Councilwoman at Large Emily Jabbour donated $1,000, and Matthew Shoemaker, who's the husband of Trustee Eileen McGurk, donated $2,000. So they also have used Connecticut-based Mission Control to do their direct mail, and of course that comes with printing and postage costs, and they spent $5,493.20. We've seen some literature from the Hoboken Friends and Neighbors group, at least two mailers. It didn't have the explicit paid for line that ELEC likes to see, and also window and lawn signs paid for by the Hoboken Republican Party. I had a brief conversation with Jerome Abernathy via email, one of several spearheading the no vote, and he explained that they're a loose confederation of groups as opposed to one organized entity like the Friends of the New Hoboken High School. He said, we're a loose confederation of a number of vote no groups. There'll probably be multiple filings by multiple groups. I think our aggregate spending is similarly small. So with that, just a couple more topics when we come back and call it a day. Just stick with us for a few moments with another word from our sponsors.
Not everyone celebrates the birth of a baby. You have options. Don't panic. New Jersey has safe havens for unwanted infants. Leave the baby with staff at any hospital, ER, police or fire station, or rescue squad. Call the number on your screen for safe haven locations or go to www.njsafehaven.org. No shame, no blame, no names. Safe Haven.
Panapinto Properties, Jersey City, shaping the workplace with state-of-the-art office spaces and addresses your company desires. Building residences that define your home environment, adjacent to all modes of transportation with on-site parking available. The right address, the right lease. Call 201-521-9000 or visit online at panapintodevelopment.com. Panapinto Properties, building Jersey City for everyone.
Hudson County View, live and uncut. John Arhides. So we'll actually have a nice story, I believe, and you don't hear me say that often, but this story actually wasn't the best of circumstances, but I think many would agree is a happy ending. So you remember right before Christmas on December 23rd, I reported on this situation at 96 Duncan Ave. You had 3 tenants being represented by the waterfront project, suing their landlord, claiming that they did not have livable conditions, specifically because they didn't have any heat. So they were working on that. Now, finally, earlier this week, this thing has come to a resolution after over 2 months, probably closer to 3. And this was due to the collaboration between city officials and advocates. And, again, now that they have heat, now they can get through the winter comfortably, knock on wood, of course. So I spoke to one of those residents at 96 Duncan. That's Betty Grant. And she had a lot of respect, and I think you could say a lot of love for County Commissioner Bill O'Day. She said, we had a meeting last week with the city commissioner and all the tenants, and he managed to get a court order for emergency boiler repair. And one day we had the parts delivered, the boiler was repaired, and the heat was on around 3 o'clock. Now, thanks to the wonderful Commissioner Bill O'Day, we triumphed. So, again, that litigation was filed against Angela Morello-Lambs. That's the landlord of the property. She does this through an LLC, which is, of course, quite common. And, the needle just wasn't moving much at all. But O'Day said that he went there on Sunday. And the 4th floor of the apartment, he saw that there was a mother living there with several children, including a newborn, to take a look at how bad those conditions were. And according to Grant, she said all the children in that family got sick when there was no heat. So O'Day continued, or elaborated, I should say, that by Monday, we were speaking with a judge, and they were putting an order together to get someone in to repair the boiler. I identified a couple of contractors and asked them to go there. They said to send an invoice to the city. The judge issued the order for emergency repairs, and in one day repaired the boiler, and the building now has heat. To say it in one sentence, I went old school. Full up in my book, he gets an A+ in this one. I think as a result of this, I think we have the landlord's attention. He also credited Jersey City Together and Joel Brooks / some North New Jersey Democratic Socialists of America for staying on top of the issue. Of course, you remember those two groups were big in bringing this to the forefront last month. Fulop also gave credit to Chief Municipal Prosecutor Jake Hudna and Chief Municipal Judge Ramey Eid for helping get the heat back on. And he said he's working with O'Day and Ward B Councilwoman Mira Prinzari to crack down on bad landlords. He said, you have some really terrible landlords in the city, and we want laws in place to work when they try to squeeze tenants. Over the cold weekend, that was one of our focuses. We'll have a new ordinance to protect tenants from landlords that look to cut corners. It is reprehensible that you have landlords that think it's acceptable at freezing temperatures to not fix or think or care about heat. The laws aren't there yet to protect those tenants as they should. So, again, a pretty happy resolution. Obviously, this wasn't the greatest situation in the world, but it's good to see, these different branches of government and members of the community come together and get this resolved on a high note. So, again, let's hope that it stays this way at 96 Duncan. And also, as the mayor alluded to, that this goes well above and beyond just this one property. So with that, folks, we're going to call it a day. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.